All right, so this is chapter 1, lesson 1, percent of a number. Okay, so we're gonna start with this entire chapter is all about percents, changing fractions to percents, decimals to percents, everything to percents. All right, so I want to talk about this triangle first in the middle of your page. Zoom out a little bit there. Okay, so everyone sees this triangle, right? So this triangle is basically a triangle to tell me how to change either a decimal, a fraction, or a percent to any one of the other, okay? So I can change fractions to decimals. I can change decimals to percents. I can change percents to fractions. I can go the opposite way, okay? Percent to a fraction, I divide by 100, right? Fractions to decimals, I just divide, okay? So I just divide the fraction. So if it's 2/3, I divide 2 divided by 3, okay? Going from decimals to percents, I multiply by 100. Okay, so 2 out of the 3 you divide, the other one you multiply. So let's look at this top corner up here. Top left-hand corner. So it says, find the percent of a number such as 60% of 2,000. You can use either of the following methods. Write the blank as a fraction and then blank, or write the percent as a blank and then multiply. In that first blank, you're going to write percent, or you can just draw the percent sign. Okay? So write the percent as a fraction and then multiply. Or you could write the percent as a decimal and then multiply. Either way works, okay? In the other box right next to percent of a number, okay, it says percents that are greater than 100% can be written as blank blank, blank blank, or blank greater than 1, okay? So you can write them as improper fractions, mixed numbers, or decimals. So you can write them as improper fractions, mixed numbers, or decimals. Any of those would be acceptable, all right? So let's take a look at a couple of examples. The first example I want to look at is find 5% of 300 by writing the percent as a fraction. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is write the percent as a fraction. So 5%, I automatically take the 5 and I put it over 100. Okay, so 5 over 100. Then I can simplify it. Well, I know 5 goes into 100. 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. 100 divided by 5 gives me 20. Okay? Then I find 1/20th of 300. Okay? So of means to multiply. Okay, so you may want to write that down somewhere. Of means multiply. Okay? It's kind of important for you to know. Of means to multiply. So anytime you see of in math, it usually means to multiply. Okay? So going back to this problem. So 1/20th of 300 means 1 over 20 times 300. Well, I can rewrite 300 over 1. So 1/20th times 300 over 1. Well, 1 times 300 gives me 300. 20 times 1 gives me 20. I can simplify. Okay, I can divide both of these by 20. 300 divided by 20 gives me 15. 20 divided by 20 gives me 1, or just 15. So 5% of 300 is 15. Okay? Let's look at the other problem. Okay. The other one says find 150% of 28 by writing the percent as a decimal. Okay, so writing the percent as a decimal. Write 150% as 1.5, okay? So remember, all I do when I'm writing this is I divide by 100, so 150 divided by 100 becomes 1.5, okay? So then find 1.5 of, remember that magic word, of means multiply, 28. 28 times 1.5 equals 14. So then I add 14 plus 28 equals 42. So 150% of 28 is 42. Okay? So remember, 150% is more than 100%, so it makes sense that my answer is going to be bigger than the number I originally started with. All right, so there are a couple of try it problems, so I want you to go ahead, try them out. There's all the try problems, okay? I want you to try them out, and we'll come back and talk about them. Make sure you pause the video. All right, so the first try it problem I have is 40% of 70. Now, it does not matter whether you use a fraction or a decimal, okay? You will get the same answer. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the majority as decimals because I find them easier to do, okay? Again, you don't have to. You can use them as fractions. You will still get the same answer. So going over to my workspace, so I have 40% becomes 0.4, okay? Remember, of means multiply, so I'm taking 0.4 times 70. That equals 28. So 40% of 70 equals 28. 40% of 70, 28. Okay. Next I have 15% of 100. 15% of 100. Come back over here. So I have 15% changed to a decimal becomes 0.15. 0.15 times 100 gives me 15. So 15% of 100 is 15. Okay. Next one I have is 55% of 160. So I'm going to change 55% to a decimal, which becomes 0.55. 0.55 of means multiply, 160 gives me 88. So 55% of 160 equals 88. Okay. Then I have 75% of 280. Okay. %, change to a decimal. 0.75 times 280 gives me 210. So 75% of 280 gives me 210. A 150% of 20. That changes to 1.5. 1.5 times 20 gives me 30. Okay, and then I add that 20 plus 30 because it's more than 150 equals 50. So 150% of 20 equals 50. Okay, I have 160% of 35. So changes to 1.6. 1.6 times 35 will give me 56, and 56 is my answer. Okay. Also, just to go back to 150% of 20, the answer is actually 30. That one is 30. Okay, and that is the end of lesson 1.